Well, hello! Today we'll be looking at what's in this exciting little pouch from Eachine. But just before we get into it, a quick reminder to please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it, comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and click on the little bell icon to find out when I'm uploading stuff. So, what's in this little pouch? It is the Eachine RedDevil. Basically, it's Eachine's version of the Toothpick style quad, and it's very much, I would say, inspired by the Happy Model Southfly X. Although most of the parts also come from most of the whoops that Eachine's put out as well. So it's kind of just, aside from the frame, it's business as usual in what's in here. So here's what we get. I like these little pouches. They're very easy to transport stuff around in. So in the box, 2 red cable ties. It's very important to go colour coordinated. In here we have 2 sets of spare props, some little screws and a big screw, a screwdriver and a prop removal tool. Some basic instructions. Goes through the pinouts on the board, which is always useful. A 3S 300 mAh free cell battery, and then the actual quad itself, which looks like this. And if I just hold these up together, I think you see what I mean by similar. And spec-wise is very similar as well. I mean, it's the case of a lot of whoops using the same components, and as they've progressed into these little frames, that hasn't changed. So you've got the same Crazy Bee F4 board in both of these. This one's using 1102 8500 kVs. This is using 1102 8700 kVs. Both have these 65mm quite floppy props, which tend to flutter a little bit under really high RPM. And although these motors are branded Happy Model and these are branded Eachine, they look identical, absolutely the same. Where the difference does become apparent is in some of the stylings. So Happy Model went with these TPU canopies. So this one is set for 30 degrees and there's another one in the box for 40 degrees. And it's got its own camera and sort of built-in VTX all-in-one. Wasn't a particularly good camera. Eachine have gone for their movable little camera in this little pivot. It's not a great deal of movement, but it's enough to get you sort of from about 20 to 40 degrees. They've also got a better VTX in, so there's 25 to 200 milliwatts, and I think that's adjustable via smart audio. You will notice it's got a little capacitor in its XT30 connector. It's got a decent size XT30 to go around there. On this one, the board seems orientated differently as well. So the plugs for the motors to the ESCs are coming from underneath, which is quite a nice touch. One thing I'm less impressed about, and I'll have to show you a close-up, is this bit here, this little sticky pad, which I guess is a little foam pad to put a battery on, is stuck on top of one of the connectors. So there's 4 ESCs and then there's something else here, which I guess might be the camera or something, and that kind of bulges under that one, so it's going to be interesting to get the battery under there. I mean, the other thing, this has got a better camera as well. This has got a Calyx EOS 2 in it, not the best camera in the world, but certainly a lot better than that one Happy Model we're using. So yeah, the next thing to do is obviously sort out this thing so I can actually put the battery in there, get it onto Betaflight. I think we might put one of those cable ties in just here, because I'm a bit worried about this little dipole getting stuck in there. Now I've got the FreeSky SPI edition, once again that Crazy Bee F4 board doing the SPI versions for, I think, FreeSky, FlySky and DSMX, and then there's the non-receiver version. You will notice in the previous quads I've put an XM Plus in to get more range out of it. I wasn't getting particularly good range with the SPI. We'll give it another go. We'll see if we can actually fly it to the edge, because basically as soon as I get a low telemetry warning I'm like, well, I better come back again, but we can try pushing that and see what happens. First thing though, let's get up on Betaflight, let's sort out these couple of little issues, and we'll take it from there. So here we are in Betaflight for the RedDevil. Let's find out what it's all about. This is at a weird angle because the USB connector's right at the bottom, so it's very hard to actually stand it up straight, but I've sort of held it there and I'm satisfied the accelerometer's correct. We're set up just with TBS Smart Audio. Of course, this is a SPI receiver, so there's no serial RX setup. Config wise, motor stop was already set. Traditional props this time. Quite unusual for these little quads actually. 8K loop, I've just personalised my own name there. Arming was already set to 180. SPI RX support already on FreeSky D. If you're going to use these, make sure you don't use the X, because I find that the CPU load goes up and the range goes down. Not much in here going on, just OSD and LED strip. This is running 4.00. It is the pre-release version, so you can either upgrade it to a proper Betaflight 4 version, or you have to roll your configurator back. I'm using 10.40 here. I've added in the RX set beacon tone as well, and that's that one. Power and battery, this is how it was. I've just upped the max cell voltage from 4.3 to 4.5 because I've got some HV batteries. Pit tuning, this is the original profile. I've set this to rate profile 2 because I have a mess with it. I'm always fascinated by these ones that set the RC rate different, and then the super rate and the max velocity comes all over the place. Look at the yaw rate, and we get different curves there. I'm probably going to be flying on this one mostly, but I'll check out that second profile, see what it's like. Receiver, we are all bound up and good to go here. Something I found out about SPI receivers, which I wasn't aware of beforehand, because I went for a whole thing of doing a video about how to push the RSSI through from a channel and then doing things to give yourself a bit more space on the channel maps. If you put RSSI channel disabled, you still get the RSSI signal coming through, and you just have to put it on the screen, which is different. It's handy to know though. So I've got all these 4 channels for doing my modes. Modes, there wasn't really anything set, so I've just done my own, and I've got 4 channels of messing around, which is all my normal ones really. ARM, my flight modes, my beeper, and turtle and air mode. OSD wise, wasn't too bad. It had a whole bunch about the current draw and that, which I wasn't interested in, so I've just set it up as per normal. This runs the VTX from USB, so beware of that one. Make sure you get the power right down and stuff. But yeah, that's about it really. It's ready to go. So yeah, let's see if I can find a way of stuffing that battery in, and we'll go test flight. So just a couple of small notes on the little RedDevil here. One thing I did was use one of those lovely colour coordinated red cable ties just to get this antenna out the way, because I was a little bit worried about that being able to get into the props, and that's not moving anywhere, and it can still close down in the box okay. The other thing is, as I mentioned, and I'll just try and show you a close up here, if we look at where the little pad for the battery strap is, you can see that little connector there is right in the way, and it shoves everything up really weirdly. I thought I was going to have to do something, but essentially this TPU is stretchy enough. I mean, it looks a little bit vicious, but if you get that battery and you give it a good old ram down there, then it fits in and it's nice and tight. We're basically relying on the fact that that TPU is quite flexible and will stretch, and hopefully we won't break it, but yeah, it does fit in, so I'm not going to do any changes there. Well, here we are with the RedDevil, and the sun's just gone in, although it feels like it's coming back out again. Ready to see how this flies. Got a bunch of little 3S high voltage 300 milliamp batteries to test. Get it up and down here and see how it does. Basically, it's a little bit breezy. We're not expecting a smooth ride, but from this sort of quad we don't expect a smooth ride anyway, to be fair. If you look in the corner where it says F11, and then when I arm it, it says F12, that's quite a nifty feature, that one. I thought something had gone wrong at first, because what I did, I'd up the power from 25 milliwatts to 200 milliwatts, which in smart audio terms would be 1.2. But what it does, when the quad's not armed, it goes and sets it to 25. So you're not sitting there on the ground overheating, and then as soon as you arm it, it goes to the actual power you want, which is great. But I thought I'd start off by crashing directly into a tree and see how it helped.
Surprisingly unaffected from that crash.
So yeah, the quad was unaffected despite it falling all the way down that tree. I'm always just looking out for ground details when it eventually comes to rest, and I'm sort of satisfied that it's down there. Again, the beeper's not very loud in this, but if you know roughly where you crashed, and fortunately I had a nice full battery, it'll beep along and you'll get to it. The quad was fine. I forgot to turn my DVR recording off for the rest of that first battery, so we're going on to battery number 2 now, where I'm just trying to think of what did I do with that other battery. And the first thing I want to try and do is make sure I can still do a power loop without crashing into a tree. Obviously I tried to get it along and see if I could get a flavour of some of the sort of speed pass type things that I normally do.
Now, you probably heard on that last one, that sort of real fluttery noise. This is exactly the sort of noise you'll get when those props are essentially fluttering around. And this is leading to what can only be described as a bit jerky footage. It's a bit rough and ready. The camera vibrations is a little bit more than I would expect here. I don't know if this is perhaps needing to tighten up the mount, because this whole camera angle can tilt up and down, as well as the actual canopy of the quad. It's kind of not supported that strongly. It's on there, but it's kind of floating around, and this, I think, leads it to get more movement than you would want. And of course, then you've got the flutter from the props, and the whole thing essentially turns into this. But that's what this sort of quad is. There is no particular fix for this sort of thing, because if you're running these sort of props on this sort of power, then you are not in for a smooth ride. Camera wise, it's okay. It's the Caddx EOS 2. It's pretty good in the sunlight, less good when you get in the shade. You get a bit of sort of ground darkening on some occasions, but nothing as bad as the cameras of olden days. So yeah, it's generally, fairly good fun. I'm having a good old laugh with it. I'm exploring around the trees. You will see that the RSSI on this receiver, the SPI receiver, is crazy low. All the way round, my radio is basically telling me telemetry low, telemetry critical, all the way. And you see, we're getting about 3 minutes out of a battery. I was landing with plenty of battery left, but after about 3 minutes I thought that's probably about it, because these actually dip really quickly if you start bringing them in as 10.1 and going downwards from there. So a whole bunch of people have suggested that Toothpicks should be flown on 2S. So I bought a 2S battery with me, and the answer to their question is, you can fly on 2S and it's okay. But I found myself with 100% throttle a lot of the time. I could actually fly in a straight line and keep it low and be at 100% throttle. So yeah, I mean, it's fine when you're just going around obstacles and you're exploring trees and stuff. But I've said it before, I'll say it again, I like this kind of really crazy aspect of the Toothpick quads when they're practically, it feels like they're going to fall apart because they're flying so fast. They are barely holding together, and it just gives me a big smile, because flying something like this at a stupid fast rate is, I think, lots of fun. But sure, you can fly it on 2S. It's again, it's not a beginner quad, it's a slightly more gentle ride. You've got a lot more available throttle range without it going mental, and it's okay. It's not my cup of tea though. So with my last battery, I was really keen to try and push and see what the SPI receiver could do. A couple of people had mentioned that they can keep flying even though the RSSI seems crazy low. And on a normal FreeSky receiver, generally speaking, your critical telemetry is set at 42. You can see this thing is dipping down into the 20s, and it's still connected. I've got no even flickers of it disconnecting. Of course, the radio is shouting at me crazily to you're gonna crash. It's all horribly wrong. But this is a different type of receiver. It seems you can just fly it until RSSI is stupid low, and I'm going directly behind myself here, and again the RSSI is in the 20s, but the signal stays with me. No problems in control at all. So yeah, weird, but it works, and that's a little bit of a relief, because I have not got enough XM Plus receivers to start putting them in every single little Toothpick quad I've got. And as far as range goes, that's about all you would probably want for this type of quad. That's basically a couple of 100 meters, gives you a massive circle, and generally with these I like sort of finding a tree to mess around with and do little things with it. That's the sort of thing that amuses me. And I've got a couple of trees here, and I like to do sort of tree dives and just finding little ways of going through them and doing things differently like that. That's about it really. I'm easily amused, what can I tell you. But yeah, fun little flyer, had no problems. Fairly good signal on the VTX. The camera seems to work okay, and the quad is nice and responsive. I'll tell you what I didn't do. I completely forgot about that other rate profile. I used my own. I never even thought about going back to the other one because I'd completely forgotten, because I was just flying around having a good time. So apologies for that. I'm sure it's fine, but everyone's got their own sort of personal ways which they fly, and I completely forgot anyway. But there you go.
Oh, this angle feels weird. I had a camera mount that goes on the wall and it just broke, and I'm having to balance the camera on top of my iMac screen, and it's kind of a little bit doohickey. But anyway, what are we talking about? This little guy, the RedDevil, turned out pretty good. I was a bit worried about that whole battery thing. That was okay. This little mount worked good, and the thing flew okay. I mean, the only problem with it is kind of the problem that all these toothpick style things have, and it's these props. They'll wiggle in them, and the amount of movement you get on this. I mean, you can see me just moving that around on its own, and then yeah, it's not particularly tight. So we get wobbles, but that's kind of how it is. If you don't like that, if that really puts you off, you won't want one of these. Quite simply. If you do like to have, you know, good fun with sub 100 gram quads that just are a little bit crazy and you can do stuff with them, then this is a pretty good version of it. I have to say, I think it beats the Soundfly just because it's got a better camera, it's got a better VTX, it's got a movable camera angle. Yeah, for all those reasons. The rest of it's essentially the same. I quite enjoyed this. I thought it was a good little flyer, good fun. The price is not too bad, and it comes in a nice little case, and it includes a battery. Lots of good things to love about it. Anyway, this was kindly supplied for review from Banggood, so thanks very much to Banggood. And of course, there'll be links down below where you can check it out for yourself. I hope this review's been helpful, and I'll catch you next one. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.